No one planned for this. There was no big announcement, no dramatic reveal, no carefully timed headline meant to grab attention. And yet, somehow, Yoko and Faye became the pair everyone started watching, slowly at first, then all at once. It began quietly, almost invisibly. They were seen at the same events, working in similar spaces, moving within the same circles, but never positioned as a pair. No promotions tried to sell them together. No interviews pushed a shared narrative. If anything, they seemed determined to remain separate, professional, and focused on their individual paths. That's exactly why what happened next felt so unexpected. Fans noticed the smallest things first. A glance held just a second longer than necessary. A moment of shared laughter caught in the background of someone else's video. The way Faye instinctively turned toward Yoko during group settings, as if checking whether she was comfortable. The way Yoko's expression softened whenever Faye spoke, even when the camera wasn't meant to be on them. Nothing about it screamed romance. Nothing about it demanded attention. And yet, people felt it. Online discussions didn't explode overnight. They grew. One comment became a thread. One clip turned into a compilation. Fans started asking the same question in different ways. Why do these two feel different? Not dramatic, not performative, just real. What made Yoko and Faye stand out wasn't grand gestures. It was consistency. In a world where public figures often exaggerate closeness for cameras, their connection seemed to exist whether anyone was watching or not. When Faye was praised, Yoko never tried to step into the spotlight. When Yoko was under pressure, Faye didn't rush to make it about herself. Their support showed up quietly, through presence, timing, and restraint. There was a particular moment fans still talk about. It wasn't from a stage or a red carpet. It was off to the side, barely framed. Someone called Faye's name, and as she turned, Yoko subtly adjusted her position so they wouldn't collide. No words, no acknowledgement, just instinct. That clip circulated faster than any official content either of them had released that week. People began to realize something important. This wasn't being curated. As attention grew, so did curiosity. Were they close friends? Creative partners? Something still unnamed? Neither confirmed anything. Neither denied anything. And strangely, that silence only made the connection feel stronger. It suggested boundaries, maturity, and a shared understanding that not everything needs to be explained. Yoko continued to move with calm confidence, grounded and observant. Faye remained expressive, thoughtful, and warm. Together, they balanced each other in a way that felt unforced. Fans didn't feel like they were being invited into a fantasy. They felt like they were witnessing something authentic unfolding in real time. What truly shifted everything was how others reacted around them. Colleagues spoke differently when mentioning their names together, careful, respectful, almost knowing. Interviewers paused before asking questions, as if sensing there was more beneath the surface but choosing not to intrude. Even staff members were rumored to notice how naturally they gravitated toward one another during long, exhausting schedules. Still, there was no confirmation. And maybe that's the point. Yoko and Faye became proof that connection doesn't need labels to be powerful. That presence can speak louder than declarations. That sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones unfolding quietly, without trying to convince anyone. And that's why, even now, people keep watching. Not because they were told to, not because they were sold a narrative, but because something about Yoko and Faye feels honest. And in today's spotlight-driven world, that kind of honesty is rare. As the weeks went on, the attention around Yoko and Faye didn't fade the way most online buzz does. Instead, it settled into something deeper, more thoughtful. Fans weren't just reacting anymore. They were observing, studying patterns, rewatching moments not for drama, but for understanding. What stood out most was how comfortable they seemed in silence together. At events where noise, cameras, and expectations usually overwhelm everyone, Yoko and Faye moved differently. They didn't cling to each other, but they also never drifted too far apart. If one stepped away, the other always seemed to know exactly where she was. Not by looking around frantically, but by trusting she was there. That kind of ease doesn't happen overnight. There was one long day, later talked about online when schedules ran late and tempers were clearly thin among everyone present. In behind-the-scenes footage, most people looked exhausted, distracted, or impatient. Yoko sat quietly, scrolling through her phone. Faye stood nearby, talking to staff. When Faye finally walked back, she didn't say anything. She simply sat beside Yoko and leaned slightly closer. Yoko locked her phone and rested her hands in her lap. Neither smiled. Neither spoke. But the tension around them seemed to soften. Fans noticed that too. People began to say that Yoko and Faye felt like a safe space for each other. Not in a dramatic, storybook way, but in a grounded, human way. The kind that shows up when things aren't perfect. The kind that doesn't need to be shown off. Speculation grew, but it was different from the usual gossip. There was less obsession with what are they, and more fascination with how do they treat each other. That shift mattered. It showed that whatever bond existed between them was being respected, not consumed. Interviews only added to the mystery. When asked about teamwork and support systems, both women gave answers that were thoughtful but vague. They talked about trust, about learning to rely on the right people, about how certain connections make demanding work feel lighter. They never named each other directly, but fans could tell who they meant. And then came the moment many now consider the turning point. During a public appearance, something small went wrong, an audio issue, a delay, a disruption that threw off the flow. Cameras caught Yoko hesitating, visibly unsure of where to stand next. Before anyone else could react, Faye reached out, not dramatically, not urgently, just enough to guide her forward. Yoko followed without question. It lasted less than 2 seconds. Those 2 seconds were replayed millions of times, not because it confirmed anything, but because it revealed something. Trust. Immediate, unquestioned trust. After that, the conversation changed again. Fans stopped asking for proof. They stopped demanding explanations. Many began saying the same thing, whatever this is, let it be. And perhaps that's the most remarkable part of Yoko and Faye's story so far. In an industry that thrives on exposure, they've managed to build something visible without putting it on display. They've shown that connection doesn't need a headline to matter. That closeness can exist without performance. That two people can share something meaningful and still protect it. Whether their paths continue side by side or eventually diverge, what people are responding to isn't a rumor, it's a feeling. The sense that something genuine is unfolding, quietly and intentionally, just beyond the reach of expectations. And that's why the spotlight keeps finding them. Not because they chased it, but because authenticity has a way of standing out, even when it's trying not to. As time passed, something subtle but powerful became clear to those watching closely. Yoko and Faye were not reacting to the attention. They were staying exactly the same. And in a space where behavior often shifts the moment eyes turn toward you, that consistency spoke louder than any statement ever could. They didn't suddenly become more careful, nor did they play into curiosity. If anything, they seemed more grounded, more certain, as if whatever they shared had already been understood between them long before the public began trying to define it. Fans began noticing how their energy changed when they were apart versus when they were together. Individually, both were confident, capable, and composed. But together, there was a calmness that felt different, less guarded, more natural. It wasn't excitement or intensity, it was steadiness, the kind that doesn't need to be announced. There were days when they weren't seen together at all, and instead of sparking panic or dramatic theories, fans simply waited. Because when Yoko and Faye did reappear in the same space, nothing felt forced or staged. It always felt like a continuation, not a reunion. One quiet interaction, shared only through a fan-captured clip, became especially meaningful. Yoko was answering a question, focused and serious. Faye stood slightly behind her, out of frame for most people. When Yoko paused mid-sentence, clearly searching for the right words, Faye smiled, softly, reassuringly. Yoko didn't look back, but she relaxed, as if she felt that support without needing to see it. Then she continued. That moment didn't trend because it was dramatic. It trended because it was human. People began talking about emotional awareness, about how rare it is to see two people so attuned to each other's state without crossing boundaries. about how connection doesn't always look loud. It often looks like knowing when to step back, when to stay close, and when to simply be present. As curiosity grew, so did respect. Even fans who usually pushed for confirmation started setting limits themselves. Comments shifted from, "Are they together?" to, "I hope they're okay." From, "Tell us the truth," to, "Protect whatever this is." That kind of response doesn't happen often, and it doesn't happen without reason. Industry insiders, when asked indirectly, offered only smiles or carefully neutral answers. No denials, no clarifications, just the sense that whatever existed didn't belong to the public and didn't need defending. Yoko and Faye continued forward, side by side when it made sense, separate when it didn't, never explaining, never correcting assumptions. They trusted the quiet. And in doing so, they allowed people to see something rare, a connection not shaped by pressure, but by choice. What resonates most isn't the mystery. It's the gentleness. In a world obsessed with speed, exposure, and certainty, Yoko and Faye are unfolding slowly, intentionally, on their own terms, and that, more than any rumor or reveal, is why people can't stop watching. Because some stories don't need to be told loudly to be felt deeply. And this one is still being written.